How to knit a tubular cast on. Hi everyone, my name is Norman. I run the blog nimbleneedles.com and today's video is all about knitting the super stretchy tubular cast on. A tubular cast on is nothing else but a standard Italian cast on followed by 2 or 4 rows in double stockinette stitch. So it's one of these techniques that received a fancy name for something rather simple. Still, when you pair it with a 1x1 rib stitch, you create a beautiful, well-rounded edge that makes it appear as if your ribs start out of nothing. So this technique will be perfect for the hem of socks or the brim of a hat. That's why I'm also going to show you how to knit it in the round and how to graft one stitch so you end up with a super invisible join without a gap. Anyway, let's show you how to knit the tubular cast on. Start the tubular cast on with a simple slip knot any way you like. I always do it like this. And there should be a sizable tail here towards the right that is at least 3 times as long as your project will be wide. And now you need to bring the yarn into this typical slingshot position here. So that's how I do it, this typical slingshot position, just the way you would hold the yarn for a long tail cast on. And now we need to cast on stitches with a simple Italian cast on following the 1x1 rib stitch repeat. So there's already 1 stitch here on our needle, so the next stitch we want is a purl stitch. So go around the yarn connected to your index finger from above and then grab the yarn here towards your thumb from above. Pull through and tighten up, and you can see a little, and you should be able to see a little purl bump here around its base. And now we need a knit stitch, so go around the yarn connected to your thumb and grab the yarn towards your index finger from above, and there is already your second stitch. Again, go around the index finger, grab from above, tighten up. It's super simple, so you are more or less weaving the needle around the yarn like this. Let's do it a couple of more times in slow motion. Continue casting on stitches in this manner, ending with a purl stitch. So one of these here. So I cast on the required number of stitches. This is the way it looks like now. And now you need to turn your work around, and you absolutely need to do this clockwise so you don't untwist this last stitch. So turn your work around clockwise like this, and then pick up your second knitting needle. And now we need to knit across 1 row, or rather 2 rows altogether, in a double stockinette stitch. And if you look very closely, you can see that these stitches here are mounted on the knitting needles the wrong way, so they go from left to right instead from right to left. So we need to knit all the knit stitches of the first row twisted or through the back loop to untwist them. So the repeat will be knit 1 through the back loop and slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front. So knit 1 through the back loop, and be careful with this very first stitch, it is a bit more tricky. And then bring the yarn to the front and slip this purl stitch. It has a purl bump here at its base, purlwise with yarn in front. Again, knit 1 through the back loop, knit 1 through the back loop, bring the yarn to the front and slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front. Knit 1 through the back loop and slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front. And continue this repeat until you finish that row. And then you turn your work around and continue in double stockinette stitch, meaning knit one, slip one purlwise with yarn in front, knit one, slip one purlwise with yarn in front, knit one, slip one purlwise with yarn in front, and so on. So a super simple repeat. And you actually can continue in double stockinette stitch for as many rows as you like. And now turn your work around again. And then you can start knitting in the standard 1 by 1 rib repeat. So we finished our 2 setup rows, and now you can knit one, purl one across the whole row. And those purl stitches will be a bit in the back. But if you look really closely, you can see a little purl bump here. So you can knit all stitches the way they appear. Instead of just knitting 2 rows in double stockinette stitch, you can of course also knit 4 rows in a double stockinette stitch, or however many rows you like. So that would mean you have to follow the repeat of the setup rows for 2 or 4 more rows, but I personally feel that 2 rows actually looks best. So let me check. This is the way things look like now. Now the tubular cast on will be very stretchy, so I actually recommend going down 1 needle size. So for the cast on and the 2 setup rows, use 1 needle size smaller, and then for the first row in ribbing, go 1 needle size up. Otherwise things will look a bit wonky and maybe a tiny bit too loose, but it will be super stretchy. So just to illustrate the other version, this would mean that here in the 3rd row, you don't start with your ribbing, but you knit across in double stockinette stitch. So knit 1, slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front, knit 1, slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front, and so on. So this will result in an edge that is a little bit more rounded. See here, the ribs start right out of nothing, and here you have, well, a little bit of a rounded transition. I prefer this version, but I didn't want to keep it from you. Of course, you can also knit the tubular cast on in the round, and the good news is it's exactly the same repeat, meaning you start knitting flat. You start with your Italian cast on just the way I just showed you. Then you knit across 2 rows in the double stockinette stitch. So it will look exactly like this. And after those 2 or 4 rows, you join in the round either by distributing the stitches to double pointed knitting needles or starting knitting with the magic loop technique I just showed you. There are only 2 things you need to change. So before I showed you to start the tubular cast on with a slip knot, but now we are just going to start with a simple twisted loop like this. Slip that to your knitting needle and then continue casting on the regular way, a simple Italian cast on. So literally the only difference is that you don't start with a slip knot. So after you finish knitting those 2 setup rows, or 4 if you prefer that, you simply start knitting according to the regular magic loop technique, or of course you can also transfer the stitches to your double pointed knitting needles. And then you simply start knitting across in the 1 by 1 rib stitch. Pay attention that you pull tight after the 2nd stitch to close the gap, and then start knitting across in the round. So it's super simple, and I'm going to show you how to close the gap and graft 1 stitch in a second. And once you finish knitting, you will end up with this little gap here where you joined things in the round, and you probably don't want this, but you can graft 1 stitch to bridge this gap, and I'm quickly going to show you how to do this. So thread the tail on a tapestry needle And then you can see here the V of this very first knit stitch here. See this V here? Here. And you need to pull your yarn through that. And right next to that there is, well, a little purl bump here. And you need to go underneath that purl bump, just like this. And now you need to go underneath the V one more time, like so. And then here, right next to this one, is another knit stitch. And we are going to pull the tapestry needle underneath that one as well. And once you pull tight, you will end up with a perfectly invisible join, and then you can weave in the tails on the wrong side. You can also do a tubular cast on for the 2x2 rib stitch, but this will be a bit more difficult. In this case, you have to knit one stitch, and now you have to rearrange the order of these stitches, either with a cable needle or without a cable needle, like this, and then knit one, and then you can purl two, and then this knit stitch. And now we need to change the order of these two stitches again. So I always do it like this. This will take a bit of practice, but if you continue repeating this, then you can use the tubular cast on for a 2x2 rib stitch as well. Anyway, that's how to knit a tubular cast on. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching, comment with your questions, and don't forget to subscribe in case you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day.